Hello, all you ghosts and goblins out there. I am Andrew,
I'm Ashton.
And I'm Sean.
and we are the Night Scholars, exploring the mystifying world of cryptids, ghosts, ghouls, and all things supernatural. Today, we are talking about everyone's least favorite children, the Black-Eyed Kids.
Screw these kids.
No, I mean, these are actually one of the ones that actually freak me out. I think it's the whole uncanny valley thing,
Yep.
which kids kind of fall into anyway, a lot of times.
Yes. And I'm
I mean,
very excited to get down into why this fear may or may not have popped up. So,
so kids are already naturally creepy. Then you give them these black, soulless pits instead of eyes. Nah, fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also their mannerisms, But I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah,
yes,
we'll,
we
we'll
will
get
get
into
into
all that.
this. Little
So,
teaser for what's to come.
All right, so
just know
one,
I hate you for making me research this, Andrew.
this is one of my favorite ones. This is one of my favorite ones. I think like last podcast on the left and the Cryptid Sisters or Cryptid Keeper, sorry, had like very good series on these.
Yeah, because what better place to be listening to uh stories about creepy children than while working at a hospital that's a little bit on the shady side already.
Oh
That's
man,
fair.
so I
Your
was
hospital's pretty creepy.
yeah. So get this, I can't say the building I was in because I'm not gonna say what hospital network I work for. I mean, if you're local, it's pretty obvious. We don't have very many here, so. But so I was in like a building, an education kind of building, right? Owned by
Mm-hmm.
one of the
Hmm.
schools that's connected with the hospital that for some reason we still do security for. I was in
Okay.
there by myself for 12 hours. Yeah, that building's definitely haunted. I kept hearing like furniture being moved upstairs, and I knew I was the only person in the building.
Fun.
That's unsettling.
It kept sounding like a table being scooted across the floor. And I was like, huh, what is that noise? It's not a boiler. It doesn't sound like a boiler. I mean, I guess it could have been some type of like machine room, maybe. But I mean, it literally sounded like, a desk or table just being scooted across the floor. Although I didn't
So
see
on
any children with the, you know, pitch black eyes.
all I'm hearing is that you and hospitals don't get along well, like, especially ones that are probably haunted.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
but
is he supposed to get along well with haunted hospitals?
I mean,
it's all right. I'm
you can
I'm I'm security, so I'll use my crisis prevention training to restrain the ghost, I guess. I don't know.
Alright. Um, I was gonna ask you how you think that would work against the black-eyed kids, but I think we should probably talk about what they are first. Uh, Andrew, do you want to go ahead and break that down, or should I give it to Sean since you've already done kind of a lot of our intro?
I mean, I'll tell you what, I'll start off with what they look like. How about that?
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Alright, so black eyed kids. Normally they appear to be about, I think the age range is like 6 to 16, normally, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like fairly regular kids, I guess, and although normally they're either very pale or they have like the olive skin tone. Uh, but of course, they always have the one thing in common, which is you know the uh, the soulless black eyes. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
white in their eyes. It's just all black. A lot of times they'll appear to wear like I guess like hoodies, from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
like jeans and hoodies kind of deal. Loose fitting,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean other than that, yeah, they They kind of look like kids, and except they have just black eyes.
Right. Another thing that I saw with them is that sometimes they're depicted not as having black soulless eyes, but basically just a void where the eyes should be, like empty sockets.
Saw that a couple times, which
And
I don't know which one is worse.
Them not having
yeah,
eyes is worse.
and then the other thing is that sometimes they are depicted as wearing older, more antiquated
Yes.
clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've
Although
seen that.
although the black hood is typically what you see most because they're able to pull it over these eyes so that way they can use that as their final like selling point to kind of just bring dread to you. But Sean, like as a general sense, like what did you get for how these children affect people and what they do to the people?
Almost every encounter I found usually happens late at night. And someplace not quite off the beaten path, but definitely with fewer people around. And I guess it makes it easier for them to be a victim because as they always see these kids, they're like, "Oh, that's weird. What are the kids doing out here?" And they'll let the kids approach, and then when they look in their eyes, a lot of people mention falling into a trance, and it's something that they're willing to let these kids in, and whenever they ask their permission and to enter, some people, a couple encounters I've found said it felt like their soul was being ripped out of their body into these eyes,
And
which
that they can
you know,
somehow like sense like your worst fears.
yep, I came across that one too. It's they can they can get into your brain, know what you're thinking, know what you're trying to do, and convince you that you're fine, and that it's worse for you if you stay where you are. Which would explain, the worst fears thing would explain why there are reports of them appearing in the middle of sleep paralysis
Oh,
episodes. Because
yikes.
oh yeah, there was a
Yeah,
couple reports of people just wake up in the middle of sleep paralysis and there'd just be a child staring at them in the corner with no eyes.
yeah. What's interesting to me is that these humanoid creatures, although there are several sightings of them and reports of them, that the first recorded one was not until I believe 98. There's some contradicting stuff, but it was a couple of years after, if our sources are correct, that in 1996, a Texas reporter in Abilene named Brian Bethel
Hmm.
was the first person to have his story in print,
Mm-hmm.
and he was sitting in his car near a movie theater when he was approached by two boys, approximately 9 and 12, wearing the hooded sweatshirts. As Andrew mentioned earlier, some of them can be known for having olive skin. One of them did have the olive skin and curly haired, and the other one was the pale skinned kid with red hair and freckles.
It was a gingerbread.
Um, yes,
Well, that's
yes,
already
he was.
unsettling.
Indeed. And then you add the soulless eyes. Anyways, so these two come up to him and he rolls down the window and they ask him for a ride so they can go to their mom and pick up some money to watch the Mortal Kombat movie. And it was when the second boy began to speak that Brian Bethel began to feel an unusual sense of dread. And he didn't really like how they were being persistent. And he was trying to tell them, by the time that I do this, you're going to miss the movie. The movie's already playing. But they just kept pushing harder and harder, saying things such as, we're just two kids and we don't have a gun or anything.
Weirdly
And
specific.
Yeah,
yes,
and
like, don't worry, we don't have a gun. We don't,
Well, now I
don't worry,
definitely think you have a
mister.
gun.
It's not like we have
yeah,
a gun or anything. Yeah,
Yeah, we're
and
not wearing conspicuous black hoodies.
yeah, more context too. The movie had already been playing for an hour.
Okay. Yeah, I knew it had
Okay,
already been playing, but
yeah.
yeah, so then anyways, so that's part of their thing is that they get more persistent and then when you're still telling them no, that is when they lift back their hood to reveal the eyes to them. And
Hmm.
they also, like the vampires, cannot enter unless they are given permission. So they were just asking over and over again, and he said no. And like so many of these other stories that have come out afterwards, so long as you say no, or even if you say yes, they all just vanish
Yeah.
in an instant without a trace.
Now, there is a little bit more to his story. Do you have the last bit of it?
That is all I have in the rendition that I
Okay.
heard.
So, as he was, feeling the sense of dread, and and then they looked up at him, he looked over as he was talking to them, and he realized his right hand had reached across his body and was about to open the door when he snapped out of it, out of the trance-like state, we'd mentioned previously. He
Mhm,
then slammed his car, I believe into reverse. But anyway, he went to drive away, uh, to get away from him.
mhm.
And right before he started moving, they became angry. They
Yep.
started banging on the car, uh, yelling at him, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay."
Yeah, I think I said that.
Uh, I just said I didn't think you mentioned the fact that they became angry as he was doing it, and then as he
Eh,
yeah, as he started driving, they did kind of vanish, uh, out of sight. Like he looked in his rear view, and they just weren't there
mhm.
anymore.
Yeah, that's at that point I would have just moved out of Abilene. I'm like, and I'm never coming back here again.
Honestly, the little bit that I've heard about Abilene, I don't wanna go to Abilene anyways, so
It's
probably for the best.
it's kind of a small town. The theater he's at is a discount theater, so it was actually a replay of Mortal Kombat, the first movie, like before they came
Oh,
out.
oh Lord, I've seen that movie, and I
Yeah,
regret my decision to watch that movie.
and he was there writing out the check for his internet bill that he had to drop in the Dropbox.
Hmm.
But
I knew it was a bill. I never could figure out what type of bill.
it was one of I don't remember what company it was. Yeah, it was internet.
Yeah, luckily the one time that I drove through Abilene, I did not stop, so
Which I forgot. You guys used to. Well, I think. Well, Sean still does. You used to live in Texas,
Well, Abilene is like a 9-hour drive from me, so I'm on the other side of the state from
and
Abilene.
yeah.
I
And
forgot. Like in Texas, you could drive for 12 hours and still be in Texas.
Yeah, it's the same distance from where my parents live in one side of Texas to get to the other side of Texas as it is for them to come and visit me in Alabama. Same distance.
Oh wow.
El Paso, which is the very edge of Texas, is closer to California than it is to this side of Texas.
Yeah.
It's that's a lot. So there's all sorts of creepy things that live here. So I went. Uh, now I couldn't verify this one, but I did see a an encounter that two people had at a gas station in Louisiana, where three kids approached them,
All right.
and basically the guy was like, what are these kids doing out here so late? Because I think they were about 12 to 14 years old, and all he couldn't tell if they were black-eyed children. He's got a bad feeling about them. Um, and then they started leaving. He looked up, and they were just staring at him with the black eyes as they were leaving the parking lot. So,
Mm. Yeah, and the first story that I have, which is the only one that I have back in Texas, was in 1918.
Mm.
Um, it was an unusually hot summer, and the man had his windows and doors open just to kind of try to cool off the house.
Yeah.
And this one actually, I don't know if it was really at nighttime. But anyway, so he heard knocking on the front door, which wasn't exactly uncommon because there were train tracks nearby, and so people would stop by a few times. But he was surprised to see two children, a boy and a girl. They asked to come in, but he just offered them a seat on the porch, and the girl ended up just insisting, like, incessantly, like, "Can we come in? Can we come in? Can we come in?" To the point where the guy ends up, like, slapping her wrist to get her to shut up. And
Mhm.
then that's, like, when he realizes that the girl had, like, black sockets of eyes and dark, endless holes where, like, the eyes should be. And again, she, like, repeated, "Sir, can we come in?" And he just, like, got so scared, and he just ran inside of his house and did not look outside again until eventually his dog stopped barking, and he realized that they were gone.
That sounds like not a fun time.
It doesn't. Because that's kind of the thing. So I have a friend staying with me right now who is not only a very huge horror aficionado, but she also looks at horror as an element of what the biggest fears are of that time period. So with children, there really was a transition at one point from them being kind of seen as a bit of an inconvenience until they could get to an age where they were the skilled laborers.
Yeah.
And even, like, for a while, like, in the 19th century, um, they very much started to see a shift from children should be seen and not heard to we want to really kind of flaunt their innocence. We want to flaunt just all of that youthfulness, and we want to make it a bigger concept. So you start getting, like, people like Shirley Temple and, like, all these other, like, rises of children actors.
Oh yeah.
And the more that we put them on display and the more that I'm assuming that during that time period, which is where we really started to see, like, films like The Omen come up, where and The Shine and, Pet Cemetery come up, you really start to see, like, where this spotlight on the children and all of this investment in the children turns into a, well, what if these children are actually, like, evil? Because you're starting to feel like this culture shift of the child is more important than the adult.
Correct.
So I think that's a very interesting origin for why this, like, could have come about. But this is one of those weird ones where I see so many sightings of them and in so many other parts of the world because we have the UK, we have Australia, we have France that all have different reportings on it. And it's just kind of interesting that the first one wasn't until 96 and it started to spread so much. And, like, we can go into, like, the other stories and everything, but I kind of wanted to pick both of your brains on, do you think that this was something that kind of got released very close to when we started using the internet more and that's why it became so popular? Or do you think that these were always hidden and people were just scared to talk about it?
So these the Becks are considered like the first internet monsters. Like the likes of Slender Man or Mr. Bojangles.
Mhm.
Um, because I mean the internet was just forming when this, the his Brian Bethel's story about them first came out. Uh,
Right.
I think it could have been one of those things that had existed, like you said, in 1918. They were there. There was, allegedly an encounter with them. Uh, I think it is something that that could have been going around for quite a while. Even like some like Japanese folklore, right? Like I'm sure you've seen the
Mhm.
movie that has like the ghost kid with the black eyes.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, they're also part of the reason every time I play D&D and I'm like, oh, are there ghost kids in this
I
campaign?
know. I freaked you out so much with my campaign on that.
And I'm like, where's the line of these sounds like, oh, yeah, goddamn ghost kids, right?
I would have absolutely had you get encounter some young kids in the mines if I had known about that and if we had gotten that far.
Yeah. Which they're
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil that campaign, but the campaign that you had modified Ashton we were playing, yeah, that one definitely has ghost kids because I've played that campaign before. But now that is kind of the thing where they're like, oh yeah, they're these either ghosts or a lot of times people see them as demonic beings. Uh, there is something interesting though. There is another school of thought on.
Bring up the fact that they're aliens.
Well, that, but they share a lot of traits with the Men in Black.
That,
The
that
way
too.
they speak in kind of the, I guess, almost sing song like way.
Mm-hmm.
Their mannerisms, the dressing out of time kind of deal, right? Like they don't dress correct sometimes. Uh, the olive skin as well as another Men in Black thing, or being extremely pale.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there's a lot of similarities between them.
I never really saw the sing-song voice. I mostly saw that they were very mechanical. And so
Yeah.
I would just imagine that
Void
being
of
more
all
of a,
emotion.
"You have to let us inside," and, like, which is so much creepier in my opinion. Like, if some, like, kid just came and knocked on my door, which is creepy enough as is, and then they're just like, "I need to use your cell phone. Can I come inside? I have to be let inside." I'd be like, "Yeah, you need to get the fuck away from me, thank
Now,
you."
what makes it even
That's a hard
creepier
no.
is it's not always cell phone. They'll sometimes ask for outdated technology. Like I've seen
Mm-hmm.
encounters where they'll knock on someone's door. Can we use your telegraph?
Oh hell no.
Like that would immediately throw me through a loop. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No,
which
some Gen
is
Alpha comes
so
up to me asking for a telegraph.
yeah, which is so fascinating to me. Like, let's say that these things are real.
hmm
Why they have not evolved like the same way as I would assume everything else that they are like associated with, which would be the vampires, demons, spirits, the type of alien known as the Greys, or the Men in Black, as you said, Andrew. Why they wouldn't have evolved the same way that everything else has. And what they want. Like, pretty much every single one of these reports, apart from a man getting a nosebleed, there's really nothing that they do to harm a person that has been reported.
Well, it was actually that goes more into that story. They actually experienced some pretty bad effects after the fact. Um, I
Only if you
think
let them inside, though.
yeah, they did. I think that they ended up with like he had to get some surgery. I don't remember what it was for. I don't know.
Interesting.
I
You
can't
got a
remember if it
lot more
was.
expansions on these stories than I did.
I've heard them all a few
They,
times.
they dug and dug and dug and couldn't find the consequences of letting these things
Yeah.
in.
But
And other than that, there were
the
consequences.
husband ended up having like getting like really bad skin cancer, like very
Oh,
shortly after this. And I believe it was either his gallbladder or his appendix. He had to also get removed. Uh, within like a month of this happening.
Interesting.
They had cats. Some of the cats never came back. I think it might have killed one of them. I don't remember. But like the effect of it was like the oh, also another thing that apparently happens is like pink eye after you interact with these things.
Hmm. Yeah, you saw a lot uh different of reports than I did.
Yeah, and it's
But there is something to be said about the man with the nosebleed, that the association of assuming that this nosebleed, which was uncommon for him. I heard that in the story,
yes.
but there is a tendency for, like, there is such a physiological and mental connection that if you start to feel as if something has taken control of your body, then your body will react in a negative way
Oh yeah, one hundred
or a
percent.
positive way. So it could be that that's not really necessarily an effect of these things, but more so his own brain, because I have seen that it does leave people having nightmares and agoraphobia.
Yeah, yeah. Also during that encounter specifically, after they let them inside, it also the power went out.
Yeah, but
Nope.
wasn't that the one where there was because that was during, like, Kansas and the snow, so I'm not surprised by
Yeah,
that because there's a lot of issues with
yeah.
that in Kansas because they get snowed in fairly
I
frequently.
mean, it could just be a bunch of weird coincidences. I guess all at once. But
It could. I think my favorite story, though, I is one where there was this guy and his girlfriend who were staying out, and watching over a property
I was
and it was,
trying to
like,
find
out in
that
the
one.
middle. Yeah, and it was out in the middle of
It's
nowhere,
uh
and
yeah,
he
I saw
ended
this
up
one.
okay. So he ended up getting approached by, um, these kids, and in this account, they had blackened teeth, and he was, like,
Mm,
looking for his girlfriend, and it's just like, like, "You're destined to be alone," and, like, the guy's kind of freaking out, like, "Okay, what did they do to my girlfriend?" But she eventually shows up, and she said that she didn't see anyone, but he still went back and, like, reported it to the homeowners because he thought it was a bit weird. Why would the kids be out in the middle of the woods that wasn't really near anything, and there weren't really people who lived out there, and there's an electric fence that surrounded the property.
mm,
And the homeowners said that they actually had seen 3 entities, which there were 3 children, on their home surveillance cameras, but they were never quite able to figure out what they were. And I love
oh,
that. Like, I love that there were, like, 2 parts to that story because it makes it more convincing when you add in, like, another element like that.
it does. So, uh, more about that story. I really just want to kind of punch home. Imagine, you're talking to, uh, I think these were older ones. These were ones around, the 16-year-old mark,
I remember saw that.
in appearance. Like, imagine you're talking to something, it doesn't seem right, and then they just smile like an unnaturally large smile full of black teeth at you.
I'm going to lock every lock I can find
Alright.
and stay up all night until I see the sun, and
Uh,
I'm never going back
Yeah,
to that
because
property.
it seems like the older they get, the more sinister they are.
oh yeah, and these ones didn't simply leave when he told them no. Uh,
No, they did not.
I mean, do you want to go into it if you
I don't have the details, so I'm glad you do. I
okay?
took shorthand, and I don't remember all the
It
details.
is my
I knew
favorite
he locked
story,
his
and I was
girlfriend down
trying to
straight
find it for this episode,
things.
and I could not find it in writing.
Okay.
uh,
That's
but yeah, so when he tried to turn them away, and he went away from because I believe it was the back patio door, so like the double glass door or sliding glass door kind of deal.
Mhm.
Uh, they kept knocking, and then as he tried to go through the house, he went back to the living room. They were knocking there from the window, and they kind of just continued to knock around the house on the windows and the walls, pretty much until his girlfriend got back.
Dang.
That is when the knocking stopped.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm kind of sad that I got the condensed version, so I'm glad that you have the fuller ones.
Yeah, I heard it
Mhm.
previously on another podcast. I can't tell you which one. I don't remember, but a
That's
lot
it.
of times, even before we started ours, I would look into like the Beck stuff a lot, just because there's something that actually, you know, would scare me, right?
It's unsettling.
No, it is, and even without the the black eyes, their mannerisms, the way they speak, extremely falls into the uncanny valley. Because
Yeah,
it's like they're
God.
they're almost human,
because I
but
saw,
I
like,
hate
they're
that
not.
too.
Much.
one argument for it where this comes from, like, if these are, like, real children and we're just giving them the black eyes to help us kind of settle the sense of unease that we have, um, that they see it as a manifestation of the Oedipus complex, which I thought was fascinating, where
Mm.
the instinctual unconscious part of the child wants to murder the parent.
That I did not see, but that's concerning.
Uh, yeah.
I did see one thing of what if this is all just an elaborate hoax by kids across the country?
Yeah, I
But
saw that too, so I just went ahead and looked into it because that's such bullshit, especially since we have reports going back to 1918. So I looked into the contacts. So the first costume contacts, which came after the first report in 1918, were specifically for the movies in 1930s, and they were not starting to be mass produced until the 1980s. So, like, even if it could, I remember wanting contacts so badly at that age and how much of a pain in the ass they are. Like, kids aren't willingly putting in contacts for a prank.
They're also, I mean, maybe not now, but even up until like a decade ago, colored contacts like that were expensive. Like a
Yeah.
couple $100s.
Well, they said that they were like stealing money from their parents, but like also like I'm pretty sure like those big black costume contacts, like I think that's a newer thing. Like colored contacts like the start for normal wear would have been just blue eyes or brown eyes or green. Like they wouldn't have been like the elaborate ones that we see now with cosplayers.
yeah, no.
Oh yeah. I remember when I was a teenager, I wanted to get like the like the Sharingan contacts
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
from Naruto.
of course.
It's completely. It's not really. It's not unrelated. But now I just remember they're super expensive. Like the costume contacts like that aren't cheap. I mean they're cheaper now, I'm sure, but even then, like what a decade ago, they were still pretty expensive. More money than like an 11 or 12 or 13, 14 year old would have.
Right.
So I don't think I don't think it was the golf kids just trying to freak people out.
Yeah.
But
Have
in, in today's age of YouTube and TikTok, you'd absolutely say somebody like, "I'm going to pretend to be one of these black-eyed kids and go screw with everybody in my neighborhood."
Yeah,
I can't find.
now, but
Yeah,
but
I
like it
can't find it.
also even if they only replay well, even if they only put in contacts, they would have to be specifically targeting people who did not recognize them because the contact's not going to change their appearance enough. It's going to make them look creepy, but they're going to be like, "Oh yeah," the stories would be like, "I saw my neighbor's kid and all of a sudden he had black eyes." And, like, they would know it was a prank. Like, they would have to not only get these contacts and the money from their parents to get the contacts, but then they would have to go to an area and supervise. And most of the reports are not on the older ones. They're on the ones who really can't get around easily on their own.
hmm. It's like going back to the story of the people that let them in. They did call somebody, and the people that came were two men in black suits,
Yeah.
uh, two tall, thin men in black suits driving a like a blacked out SUV.
Do you think those are your men in black?
It could be like that. It's a theory that they're either like they're going to become Men in Black or they're the Men in Black's kids kind of deal. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like,
It's pretty
personally,
interesting though.
yeah, like, my favorite is them being vampire children. That's my
Hmm.
favorite of the theories.
That's what I lean towards. Is that they're vampires. The whole invitation, the incessant invitation. You have to invite us in.
And
Yeah.
it is. I kind of think they're just their own entities, because I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't know a whole lot about them. But you heard of like the white-eyed children,
Nope.
white-eyed kids.
No.
Apparently it's
I
another
haven't much words.
phenomenon. And one showed up. I, I don't know if it was the story where they let them in or not. I think it was, and spoke to them. This one apparently didn't have bad intentions. Um, and there's this idea that they're kind of like opposing sides of the same thing. Like maybe the black-eyed kids are more demonic forces, the white-eyed beings are more, I guess, angelic things. I didn't do a whole lot of research into it. I probably should have, but there's not a whole lot of info on them as far as I know. But I just think it's kind of interesting that in some rare instances of these stories, like once in a while, one of the white-eyed children or beings will show up.
Yeah.
Although the ones I've seen tend to be on the older end, like the 16, 17-year-old mark.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't find anything about white-eyed children, so
The black-eyed kids probably also like I haven't seen anything that specifically says this, but I assume that they like apart from just the dark, they kind of just need that covering for whatever reason because I know there's several reports of them like in England. Like England seems to just be completely plagued with them.
No, I mean England's
And
like
it's typically
haunted as
rainy all the
fuck.
time there.
I mean England is just like one big graveyard, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, they either appear. It's either like evening time or at night. You don't.
Yeah,
There's no
'cause
real sightings of them during the daytime.
yeah, at least like some of the stories in that area, specifically in Cannock Chase, there was a murder that happened in the 1960s of three local schoolgirls, and
Um,
they think that one of the black-eyed children is the ghost of one of the girls.
and that makes sense. Like yeah, I mean that's like I was saying before about like some like that like in Japanese horror, a lot of times it will be like I don't remember what movie it was. There was definitely a movie where the monster was a like ghost kid with black eyes.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah, I'm
that translates pretty worldwide.
yeah, and I'm really mad at myself because I watched that one and another classic Japanese horror movie back to back, and I don't want to say that it was a Japanese version of Ringu and then be completely wrong, but my brain's telling me The Grudge, right? Like the Japanese version of that.
And it could
I'm pretty
be.
sure that thing had black eyes.
What?
I never. I'm pretty sure that thing had black eyes in the American version, so I wouldn't be
It
surprised if it
did.
had it
Yeah, so it
in the
was The
Japanese
Grudge.
version.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if the eyes were whited out or not. If they were black.
No, and The Grudge, or at least the Japanese version, which is called Ju-on,
Hmm.
the kid does have the black eyes.
Yeah.
Um, and then another theory that I saw on them was that these black-eyed children are children who killed their family and came back, which might be why they don't care to know about the updated technology and they're just saying technology from back when they were alive and they killed their family.
I mean that would make sense.
Worse. I don't know what's them worse, them being vampires or them just being returned family killers.
Oh, definitely the returned family killers.
Yeah,
What was that one? Was it Lindsay Borden?
yeah. Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden. Do you think she's gonna become a black-eyed kid, or she has become one?
That's if you believe she even did it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think she's older though. I think she was older
She
when
was
she
about
did it.
20.
So
I think she was about 20 when she allegedly did it.
No, I thought she was younger. Okay. I
Uh,
don't know the
yeah.
story that well. I just remember was it 40 whacks and then the father got 41 or something like that. But
when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
mm,
She was 32 years old apparently. So she
Ah,
would
well,
not.
she's just an adult. Yeah, she okay.
Yes.
no, so she'd just be a regular returned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she died of pneumonia, so she really wouldn't be that much of a threat anymore. She
Imagine
wouldn't
that
have the lung capacity for it.
they're walking at you and just
Chop
with
it.
an axe, and then they just
Yeah.
stop midway and just start
Yeah,
hacking
they're
up
just
the
like
lung.
yeah, they're like I can't do it.
I've had pneumonia once. It sucked. That is probably
Yeah.
I think that is the only thing that had stopped me from being
From
able to do
murdering your
anything.
family?
No, no, from doing anything. Like there's
It
time, like
sounds
when
like
I
you were
had
gonna
it,
say.
I would try to stand up and I would just like collapse back into bed.
It sounded like it said he was about to say stop him from murdering his family.
No,
Yeah, I
I like my
mean,
family, most of them.
See, it's that most that's doing a lot of
The
work
ones
there.
that I associate with, I like.
why don't you associate with the other one anymore, Andrew?
Are they
Uh,
black eyed?
No, they've done some unforgivable stuff.
This probably goes back to the Wendigo. They tried to befriend one, didn't they?
No, I can't say what it is, but it's I
Ah,
don't associate with them anymore.
fair enough. Now, have you seen any stories of these in Appalachia?
Yes, I have actually.
I've seen.
This one's real short. I could read it real quick. It's like a couple
Okay.
paragraphs. All right. So this came out 2 years ago. I don't know the person's name, but I believe I've encountered the black-eyed children over a decade ago in rural Appalachia. This has always low-key disturbed me. Keeping in touch to this day, we've never brought it up again. We were at a local/state park sort of place between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. I remember we were parked alongside the woods and some picnic tables. It was pretty desolate. We were technically trespassing. That's true. Most of the parks here close at dusk. And what we were doing there, well, I'll leave to your imagination. As our curfews were approaching, and we were finishing up our time together, we experienced a very ominous feeling of dread. He was in the driver's seat, preparing to start the car and pull off. The car doesn't start. We sort of laughed it off, as it wasn't the first time uh, this has happened, and we talked. Suddenly, to the right, the passenger side of the vehicle, we see faint lights coming out of the woods. The ominous feeling intensified. Emerging from the woods, there are 4 to 5 children, younger than us, appearing to be 7 to 11 years old. I'm not going to claim they had black eyes. It was dark, and I don't remember, as I was pretty shaken up. I hadn't read about the black-eyed children lore/phenomenon until years after this. All I can say is they were not normal. They didn't belong. The cabins at the park were not occupied. They weren't even getting rented out, as it was autumn/winter time. We were miles from the park's hotel. There were no adults. They were absolutely out of place. What were the lights? I don't know. But the closest thing I could compare them to were glow sticks, as if they had opened a package of those novelty glow sticks that included like bracelets, necklaces, or wands. But it wasn't like they were having fun or goofing off. They just stopped, stood there, and stared at us. He tried asking what they were doing there. If they were lost, where are their parents? No response. The oldest looking child, a bit heavy set with a gray hoodie on, approached the vehicle just in front of where the passenger headlight would be. My friend started really freaking out at this moment. He locked the doors and was like, hell no, we gotta go. Eventually, the car starts, the children don't move, and the kid stays put in front of the car. My friend eventually yells to the kid, I'm going to run you over. The boy slowly backs away, raises his arm, and points at us as we are leaving. I didn't look back.
I forgot about that story. I know that story. That's the first story that I've ever heard about these guys.
Yeah, nope. That's a hardest of no's.
Yeah, that's a large group of them.
Yeah, I'm
The most I've ever, yeah, that's the most I ever heard was like 2 or 3. That's just.
yeah, I would rather not encounter them in the woods at night.
Right, like, I don't want to be approached by any child in the woods at nighttime.
So anyway, I
So,
started blasting.
I mean, at that point, it's self-defense.
Yeah.
Good luck explaining that. Like, as far as we know, if these things are killable, their eyes, like, return to, like, a normal human color, and so it just makes it look like you killed the child.
Oh
Oh,
god.
so you're going to the Van Helsing movie logic that once he kills the monster, it converts to human.
Sure, I
Just
mean, I watched that movie twice in 8th grade. It could be that I remembered a theory from it.
I don't. I'm amazed you watched it twice. I could barely stand it once. It was terrible.
I watched it in college in film appreciation.
It was the only horror adjacent film that I could stomach at that point in my life.
And now look at you, running your own horror stories.
I know, I've come so far.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I had the villains wiki pulled up.
Yeah, I looked at that earlier.
Now scrolling down on their images, and that just, oh man.
Yeah, my YouTube page is completely full of black-eyed kids right now. I'm like, can you please not recommend these to me anymore? I'm good.
Even pictures of them, like it like elicits this like feeling of like, I guess, anxiety from me when I see them. You know?
Yeah, like I was like casually like mostly just listening to a video and not really looking at it. And then the one time I happened to look down at a screen, it was like one of them caught on surveillance imaging attacking somebody, and I was just like, no, thank you. I don't need this. I don't care if this is completely staged. I don't need this. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just glad we're continuing the tradition of things that are going to try and kill Andrew.
I hope not. I'd rather take one of the monsters.
Of all the things that are in your area, this one seems the most likely to get you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because especially since you live in a remote area.
I do. Yes. I live up a holler. Oh, sorry. Hollow for you non-Appalachian folk.
So, Sean, do you believe in these things?
Yeah. There's the anecdotal evidence is enough to think that something really creepy is out there, and it's all way too specific to be made up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
about where I am, where it's just like, I don't want to believe in these things, but there's a lot of sightings of these things, and the storytelling element of it just seems a little bit better than a lot of the other supernatural entities that you can come across. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I 100% believe in them, and they do terrify me. I would hate to see the black-eyed children at any point in my life.
Well, this has been a cheery episode for all of you ghosts and goblins out there. If you would like something a little bit more lighthearted, you can come and check out our shop where we have both stickers and t-shirts that depict the Jersey Devil giving the donut a squonk. Make yourself feel better today by picking up one of these shirts and let the black-eyed children go to rest where they deserve.
Thank you again, our ghosts and goblins, for listening to the Night Skies. You all be good to each other. Don't answer the scratching at your window.
Or do.
But most importantly, stay safe out there.
Good night.